Welcome back to the MSU WMA podcast. In this week's episode, we have John Evangelista, founder of Evangelista and Associates. Listen in as he covers his journey in financial planning and wealth management. We hope you enjoy. Welcome back to the Michigan State Wealth Management Association podcast. My name is Lefty Theodoru, and I'll be your host today. In this episode, we have a special guest, John Evangelista of Evangelista and Associates.
Thanks, Lefty. I appreciate having the opportunity to talk to all of you today.
So first question, could you tell me a little bit about yourself, your background and the early stages of your career and how they transition you to have your role where you are today at Evangelista and Associates?
So I am an aviation management major,
Wow.
which has absolutely nothing to do with wealth management. After graduating from college from Eastern Michigan, I wanted to be a pilot, and so not a financial advisor. Answered an ad in the newspaper. Back then, that's how that was done. And from American Express Financial Advisors, the precursor to Ameriprise. They had jobs for brand new financial advisors, happened to be maybe 500 yards behind my current office, so I have not moved very far. So I started at American Express, had to get licensed and learned what a mutual fund was, had to learn that process inside of 90 days, and then immediately became a financial advisor, started picking up the phone and calling everybody and cold calling. So blessedly, we no longer cold call, the good news of that. So started in 1995. Back then, we were the only year that we were employees. Lefty was the first year, your training year. So those of us that survived the first year, and I was quite successful our first year, then you were a franchisee of American Express Financial Advisors. So believe it or not, I became a business owner after the first 12 months of being in this industry. So flash forward, realized later on, late 2000s or late 1990s, most of my clients were coming in referral. I wasn't buying leads anymore. I wasn't doing as much cold calling, more referrals. Realized that I was an early adopter to the fiduciary fee-based model back in 1998, well before most firms were doing that. Most people were commission-based back then. Realized I wanted to go independent, as we would say, and it's more common now for everybody. And originally thought about going independent in 2001. 9/11 happened. Everybody's freaking out. So I didn't think I wanted to do that. So eventually went independent with an independent broker dealer in 2003. And that's how it really kind of came to be in independent. And really the focus on our niche, which I know you have a question for later on, really was in 2005. But I mean, generally speaking, I want you to understand one thing is I never wanted our clients to confuse who I worked for. Did I work for American Express? So even though I was a franchisee, they couldn't separate me from the company. And yep. I really wanted people to be able to, if asked by a friend or colleague who their advisor was, I didn't want them to the answer to be American Express. I wanted it to be John Evangelista. So long-winded answer potentially to a short question, but that's how it all started. And I just celebrated my 30th anniversary of being a financial advisor on April 26th of this year. So 30 years later, here we are.
Wow, congratulations. That is an amazing accomplishment for sure.
Thank you.
So this can kind of transition into talking about your firm. I want to ask, do you specialize in a specific client type or niche? And how do you close those clients and maintain good relationships with them?
So yes, we do have a niche. We did that a long time ago. I know a lot of people are recommending, a lot of practice consultants are running around saying, you need to specialize, you need to specialize. So we did that a long time ago. Really in that 2005, decided to make that leap to, when I had the opportunity to speak at various colleges, I reference a book that I read that was, the title is The Brand Called You. It's written by Peter Montoya. And so that was really the foundation of that. So I flew down to Miami and explored with him and 70 other advisors around the country this idea of a niche, well before most people did. And so we believed back then we wanted to be everything to a smaller group of people. If you think like 43,000 employees is a small group, but that's another topic for another day. So yes, we do. It does attract the people we're looking for, and it deflects the people we're not looking for, as I like to say. So that has allowed us to be a buy referral only practice for a long period of time. It's allowed us to sustain the growth rate. So when you say convert or close clients, I would say that we have an amazing reputation around the university communities. So we don't just advise U of M, it's Michigan State faculty and staff, it's Yale, it's UCLA, USC, Texas, Florida. I mean, we're licensed in 19 states, so we are a known entity for faculty and staff. So probably not surprising in my opinion, and I'm probably the first time saying this to an open group. If I have a prospect that is trying to determine what advisor in our crowded space, who they should trust and work with, and one of us, let's say they're a university faculty and staff person, and I've got generalists, and then a group that says, I provide wealth management specifically to your group, and I'm a specialist.
Yep, they'll choose
it usually closes itself. There's
Very
a little bit more than that. That's a little disingenuous, but, and then as far as keeping clients, let me change that topic a little bit. Maintaining clients. We have a very industry respected retention rate. I'm not saying, and no one should ever say that every client that comes to work with us stays with us, because that's not factually accurate. But I will hold up our retention rate against everybody else. And the way that happens, to be direct, is the relationships that we have with our clients. It's not just the technical ability of those of us who are CFPs and knowing what we're actually talking about, but it's also understanding that these are relationships that we have as well, not just clients.
Yeah, that is a very important part of the job that a lot of firm owners talk about, is not only having that technical knowledge, but also being able to be good with people and continuing and maintaining relationships, because that's how they stay with you. So is there any specific challenges I want to ask about working with that, client niche that would be maybe different for some other client niches? Anything unique that you recognized or no?
I would say recently it's changed. To answer your question, I think the university communities have generally been more of an insulated to economic forces. They've been insulated from a lot of the things that might, being in Southeastern Michigan as a generalist at American Express, you shouldn't be surprised that I work with clients that are Ford or GM or, what used to be Chrysler, right? So you can't be in Southeastern Michigan as an advisor and not work with clients that are not universities. So, So I would say what's been interesting and challenging is what has normally impacted those other industries is now impacting the university community. So we're seeing some of those normal concerns that we would have seen exhibited in that Ford client or that GM client during an economic slowdown to actually this community that's never really experienced that. So I would say there's a unique challenge that's now presented itself that our advisors are like, wow, I've never really had to talk about this with our types of clients, and now we are.
Yep. And that is also an important point in this industry, is being able to adapt to fit the needs of your clients. And it kind of leads me into the next question. Because the industry is always changing, what steps is your firm taking to stay ahead of the game, continue the growth rate you guys have, and the success for the future years to come?
I guess it starts with never being happy with where we are. So I'm often asked the question, hey, we're in the top tier in the country for our broker dealer. We're beating everybody's metrics. If I would tell you what our net new is compared to our peer group average, we've gone through formal evaluations with FP transitions, well-recognized groups for practice management. And they're like, okay, you guys are all these KPIs, you guys are knocking it out of the park. So to answer your question, it's because we continue to want to improve everything that we're doing. We are all about continuous improvement. We're never happy with status quo. So just because something has worked, and I'm pressing on your generation. So I have an amazing team. Emily just went and got her master's in financial planning, Wyatt. So we built a great team that is hungry on continuing to improve our advice, continuing to improve our processes, never being happy with status quo. And being young and dynamic, it's also been fun affiliating with Sheastel and your program, because your program's growing fast, rapidly, and it's really matching our growth rate. So it's been a good partnering. We do recruit from Central and Western and other schools, but your growth rate is matched to ours, and that's been exciting that we can, again, take all these young minds who are hungry, who are also being educated on contemporary knowledge, because we're dinosaurs. Those of us that have been here for 30 years, it's normal and natural for older advisors to get a little stuck in their ways. It's like, it's not broke, don't fix it. I believe that we always believe it's broken and we just need to kind of fix it. So, yeah. So that's how we stay relevant.
Yeah, it's great that you bring up, about our wealth management here, our club here, and she's still a few years ago there weren't as many kids as there are now, and now you see, the first opening few meetings have like at least 150 students, and it's incredible to see. And that's one of the reasons why I became more interested in this industry, was the growth potential, and it was becoming more popular. And as you speak to more people, they all just sound excited for what the future holds in this industry. And that's what kind of enticed me to learn more about it. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, the fact that you have a wait list now,
Yep.
you have people applying and there's no just automatic entry.
Yep.
That's
So
exciting.
it's very exciting. It used to be junior year, you would apply, but now there's a wait list for freshmen and sophomores who kind of already know that they want to do it, and they kind of want to dip their feet into it and get exposed. And now you just create this whole new, kind of have to change the way you were doing things in the past, because you're dealing with, 2, 3, 4 times as many kids as you did in the past. So, and
Yeah.
you know what? You want to help them all out, because there's lots of opportunity here at State. And you just want to make sure that everybody gets the best out of it, what they put into it.
Yeah, it's been interesting in this interview process this fall, the number of students that have already passed the SIE. Some are already licensed and registered, and you're like, I'm seeing resumes come across my desk that I'm just like, wait, like, am I looking at a graduate's resume, or am I looking, you're a sophomore and you've already got your SIE? I mean, it's a crazy world. It's a crazy
Kids
world.
are only starting earlier and earlier, and it's just getting more competitive, and that's what I love about it. It's one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
We talked about a little bit about challenges already, but not just for your firm, but maybe something you had to go through, or like an outcome you had to get over, or a hump you had to get over in your early career. What was something that you kind of like are like, I'm glad I went through that, because now I know what I know today. You're thankful for that growth moment.
Yeah. So that happened. I was with a older advisor. I had been presented with an opportunity, and all of you may find an opportunity at some point that you are presented with an opportunity, and you try and go and you try to make the best decision you possibly can with the information at the time. So I'll tell you, hopefully I'll tell this story in a short fashion. So I was approached and by some people that I know and respect and had known them for a long time. And they said, hey, John, there's this $1 million producer. He has a lot of resources, no time. We think there's opportunity there. And to be direct, you have a lot more time and for your resources. So what do you think about coming together? So I agreed with that, seeing the logic of that. And so I went up and started working. and helped this practice move from 1.1 million of revenue to 1.75 million inside of 12 months.
Very impressive.
I was impressed. I think by most reasonable people it would be. The challenge was at that time, I realized that, and it happens in our world, sometimes people can feel like a little threatened by that, of like, well, why don't you just go find your own clients? And I'm like, what do you mean? Why do you want me to duplicate the clients that I have? Why wouldn't we try to just duplicate the best clients of the firm, right? Even back then we thought that. And just realized I was not in the right place. And so something I would say is a challenge for all of you is to recognize when, and this isn't about giving up, but just recognizing when it's not a good fit. And so that was really my motivation. I had read the book. I'm like, I'm going to fly down on my own time, my own dime to Florida to meet with Peter Montoya. And I came back, I was energized. I'm like, okay, here's all I want to do. I want to just take this idea, this niche, and I just want to put a tab on the company website that just speaks to this market. It's just, I'm not talking about rebranding the whole firm. I'm not talking about changing anything. I just want to narrow, because these people need us. You had these people in your client base already, but you hadn't really helped them the way that we helped them. And just realized it was falling on deaf ears. I was told at that point, which is the point of this answer to your question, at some point you might have what I heard, which is when I presented that excited, and this individual looked across the table at me and said, that's the dumbest idea in the world, that it will never work. And here we are. We have grown. Our growth rate is great. We're recruiting. Clients love us. We're by referral only. And we're 20, 21, 22 employees. And guess what? It's not the dumbest idea in the world. And guess what? It worked. So that was the greatest challenge, because a lot of people in our world, whether it's peers, bosses, clients, will tell you that's dumb, that's stupid, that will never work. And having the courage of my conviction, here we are.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's a great response. Having that confidence in yourself, knowing you have that vision for success and that you should really go for it if you believe it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So like I just said, vision of success. How important is it to have clear goals in your head to try to further your career and just accomplish a lot of different things in this industry?
I think it's foundational. I think it's fundamental. I don't know how we can be advisors and preach to our clients, extol the virtues to our clients about setting clear goals and objectives, timelines, measurables. We preach that, we speak that every day to our clients. Delayed gratification, sacrificing a little bit today for the future promise, right? I don't know. I don't want to succeed on accident. I don't think you do succeed on accident. I think you have to be intentional. So you breaking down, where do you want to be 10 years from now? And then coming back to, where do I want to see myself 3 years from now? Where do I want to see myself a year from now? And then breaking down, what do I need to be doing in the next 90 days that is going to move me along that path towards the ultimate end? So I don't believe that you can be successful in this industry. Maybe you can by accident. However, I think you give yourself the highest probability of succeeding if you're that intentional. I think you have to be intentional. You have to plan. Otherwise, how are you going to say that to a client? You got to walk the walk. You can't just talk it.
Yeah. So that kind of brings me into my next point. I'm sure you have, but have you ever dealt with difficult clients who disagreed with you? And how did you kind of maintain the relationship when you guys had different viewpoints on something?
So yes, I think everybody would be lying to you if they said everybody just loves us and they agree with everything that we say. So how do you handle that? I think you handle that. You have to leave your ego at the door. It's not about you, it's about them. I think a lot of times where I sat in meetings with other advisors, it almost seems like they're combative, like they're Like, it's their life. It's not your life. It's their money. It's not my money. So the way that I've handled that, Lefty, to be specific, is I believe in more of a consultative approach. So what I just said is really important from my perspective. It's their life, not your life. It's their money. It's not your money. So if you think about this, if you go see a doctor, and I use a lot of medical analogies, I come from a medical family. The doctor is going to evaluate and prescribe. Does that mean everybody's going to go to the pharmacy and fill the prescription? No. Do people leave the hospital against medical advice when they know they probably shouldn't? Yes. So can we feel a sense of like, hey, I want to help them understand why that they should listen to my advice? Yes. But it's their life. It's not our life. And so you can help them to the best of your ability, and some will, some won't. And ultimately, as long as you can go home at night and said, I gave them my best advice, I tried to help them in the best way possible. But I'll go back to that medical analogy. There are a lot of things that people do against their best interest physically. Why should we expect anything different financially?
Yep. That is part of the job, being fiduciary and trying to put yourself in the client's shoes and acting in their best interests. So that's a great point. So there are a lot of resources here at MSU, and I'm sure at other universities too, for students who want to go into wealth management. But I want to ask you who your greatest mentor or influence was, and what lesson did they teach you that kind of sticks with you and helps you out today?
Well, I've had a lot of, so I read a ridiculous amount. Hopefully won't surprise you. It's probably something consistent with a lot of people in my position. I would say the person that's probably been the biggest influence might surprise you, and it's really my wife, Chris. This is a tough industry. This is a tough business, or it can be, especially for those. It's always interesting when I interview someone like you, and they're like, I just want to be a firm owner, John. I want to own my own practice. And I'm like, I don't know if you truly understand what that means, but okay, let's go with that. So the greatest influence, and so in that tough time, I'm going to relate it back to where that principal said, that's dumb, that's stupid, that's never going to work. Chris looked at me and she said, look, and we still embody this today, Lefty. So we have a saying here, whether somebody has 5,000 or 5 million, we treat everybody the same. And so there were a number of times over the years when I was like, oh my gosh, I met with this person and I know they're at U of M and I know they're in this market, but man, they have like $15,000. And Chris was there, angel on my shoulder, whispering in my ear, like, you are going to help them. And I said, okay. so anyway, so that was, part of that was a big influence on me. And, and also I would say this to all of you, who you choose around you is going to be really important. And to have her as my support system, to have her there when I came back and maybe a client or maybe a prospect didn't move forward, Lefty, you need somebody when you're putting in those 50 and 60 hours, people who understand what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish. And those are going to be supportive of you, because I have to tell you, this is a tough business. It's very similar to like residency, and in some cases, I don't want to make it exactly. So if my doctor clients have to listen to this, they're like, what you go through is nothing that we went through. So in some ways it is. There's a lot of time investment. There's a lot of time away from home. So having a good support system around you that will support your end in mind, and that goes back to that planning. If you can bring those people into your world that know where you're trying to go for the next 10 years and the next 3 years and the next year, and will be supportive of you. So I would not be where I am today. This firm would not be where it is today without some prodding and influencing along the way. I've had the business mentors, and they're important to me. However, I would be direct in saying that was probably the greatest influence.
No, it's a very good response, and that's a fair response. A lot of people, it's their family that keeps them going. It's not somebody that they just work with every day. It's kind of like your why. Why do you do this? Why do you have this goal in mind? And it's important to have that purpose because that's what keeps you pushing every day.
Especially when you're at the office at 9 o'clock at night on a Wednesday.
Yep. And then last really quick question to kind of end off this week's episode. What's one quick piece of advice you could give to students my age to help them succeed in this industry and make an impact on where they work?
Study, learn, read a lot about emotional intelligence. So EQ, sales EQ. So I think we work a lot on education. We think a lot about like IQ intelligence. Like, are you a good CFP? Did you pass the CFP exam? Do you know all of the statutory and the advice points? And so do you need the technical? Absolutely. I would say the emotional quotient, that emotional intelligence, is just as important, if not sometimes more important. So I would say to you, work on the emotional intelligence just as much as you do on the intellectual intelligence. And then the last thing I would say is there's so much to learn. There's so much to do in what we do. Just try to get a little bit better at what you do each and every day. And do it a little bit each and every day. Don't try to go for those big wins all the time. I mean, you can, but understand that the big wins a lot of times happen because you had the small victories along the way. And so, because it's a tough business, and even when things go right, it can still be challenging. And it's really challenging when things go wrong. So working on that emotional side, because I've seen people who are amazing at the advice, but just crumble under pressure. And, they knew everything they needed to know, but they just couldn't handle rejection, or they couldn't handle adversity, more mental adversity than physical, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. Consistency is key. Showing up every day. That's key. I agree.
Yep.
Yeah. So that will conclude this week's episode. Thank you so much for your time and for being part of the MSU WMA podcast.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and keep up the good work. You guys have a great program.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this discussion, please like and share the podcast on Apple and Spotify. The WMA podcast is part of Michigan State University's Wealth Management Association, a student organization whose goal is to inspire the next generation of financial advisors. Feel free to follow us on social media at MSU WMA and check out our website at msuwma.com. Anything heard on either the MSU WMA or Spartan Journal podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be considered as investment advice.